Welcome to the deep dive. You came to us with an incredible stack of sources, a complete family lineage and breeder index for one cultivar,
Yeah.
the legendary Skunk number 1.
It really is foundational. It's not just a classic name. It's the bedrock that the majority of modern genetics are built on.
Right, so our mission today is to use your material as a map. We're going to trace how 3 distinct land races came together back in the 70s and became this genetic blueprint for, hundreds of the world's most famous cultivars.
Yeah, hundreds is not an exaggeration.
Okay, let's unpack this right at the beginning. Before we even get to the 1,000 descendants, we had to start with the Trinity. What were the 3 foundational parents of Skunk number 1?
The official core lineage is, it's a 3-way cross. Afghani X Acapulco Gold X Colombian Gold.
That sounds simple on paper.
It does, but you're talking about combining 3, radically different geographically isolated ecosystems into one single hybrid. It was a stroke of genius.
A world tour in one strain. So what was each landrace bringing to the table, genetically speaking?
Well, you start with the heavy hitter, the Afghani. That's your classic indica from the hash belt. It's short, resilient, fast finishing, and this is crucial, it provided that massive core resin stock.
The stability.
Exactly. The structural foundation for indoor growing.
So Afghani gives us the bulk and the stickiness. What about the other 2, the golds?
They bring the head, the cerebral high, and all the Island sativa. It brought these soaring, clear effects, but it was notoriously long flowering.
Ah, okay.
And then you had the Colombian gold, which was known for its beautiful, sweet, almost incense-like profile. Mixing all 3 gave you maximum hybrid vigor. You got the speed and resin from the Afghani, but the height and the psychoactivity from the sativas.
Okay, so wait. If Sacred Seeds created it in California in the mid-70s, how did 2 Dutch companies, Sensi Seeds and Dutch Passion, become the ones everyone associates with it?
That's the historical tension right there.
Yeah.
Sacred Seeds made the invention, no doubt, but the Dutch breeders, they were the ones who put in the painstaking work of stabilization.
What does that mean in practice?
They took this vigorous, kind of chaotic American hybrid, and they inbred it, generation after generation, to lock in the traits to ensure consistency. They turned an invention into an operating system.
That sounds like a solid origin story, but your source suggests there were competing narratives. Other histories.
Oh, absolutely. The earliest days are never straightforward. One really fascinating theory suggests that a breeder known as Jingles, or Sam Watson, in Humboldt, he initially created just the Afghan ex-Colombian line.
So a 2-way cross first.
Right. And then Sacred Seeds came along and refined that line by adding the Acapulco gold component later. It was sequential.
So maybe not one single 3-way blend, but a multi-step process.
Precisely. And the other version, from people like Todd McCormick, suggests all 3 were brought together, but then the resulting hybrid was just heavily inbred, crossed back to itself to lock down those traits. Either way, that 3-way split is the anchor.
Let's jump into the immediate impact then, the first wave. Before Skunk number 1 was a breeding tool, it was already famous for its unique expressions, its phenotypes.
Exactly. A phenotype is just the physical expression of the plant's genetics. It's why 2 seeds from the same pack can look and smell totally different. And Skunk number 1 was so diverse that specific expressions became famous on their own.
So which ones were the most critical right out of the gate?
Well, from the Dutch side, especially Dutch Passion, they were hunting for commercial reliability. They released Skunk number 11, which was selected purely for yield and consistency, a perfect cash crop.
And the other side of that coin?
The effect-driven selection. That was Euforia, which they picked specifically for its more uplifting, euphoric, sativa-leaning high.
But the real dark horse.
Yeah.
The one that's pure folklore.
Yeah.
It's the infamous roadkill skunk.
That's the true legend. The name tells you everything. It was that incredibly foul, sulfurous, almost rotten expression that was just present in the early gene pool.
So breeders actually selected away from it.
For the most part, yeah, for commercial stability. But that roadkill skunk, that represented the ultimate overpowering funk that gave the whole family its name. It signaled potency. That penetrating aroma was the hallmark of the real stuff.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. The ultimate outlier. How does a single clone, in the UK of all places, launch a global dynasty we now call the cheese phenomenon?
The story of Exodus cheese, or UK cheese, is pure accident and preservation. It was a single, intensely savory, cheesy phenotype found in a batch of Skunk number 1 seeds, probably around 88 or 89.
And it was isolated by who?
by the Exodus Collective in the UK. They kept it as a clone-only cut.
And clone only implies what? That it was special.
It means it was too special to lose, but it was too unstable to reliably reproduce from seed. For years, the only way to get it was trading cuttings. It became mythical in the UK underground.
And this led to other similar finds, right?
It did. It later led to the discovery of its underground sibling, the blues or livers cut, a similar skunk phenotype from the north of England. It just showed how widespread these powerful expressions were in Britain.
So to create a family tree, they eventually had to stabilize that UK cheese clone with seeds.
Exactly. Breeders like Big Buddha got the clone, crossed it back to something stable, in this case, Afghani, and they created Big Buddha cheese.
Which then leads to things like blue cheese.
Right, blue cheese is Big Buddha cheese crossed with blueberry. But crucially, this is where we see modern breeders creating what they call gas bridges.
We hear that term gas funk or gas bridge all the time now. What does that actually mean?
It means connecting that old school pungent funk, the cheesy, earthy profiles, to the new school fuel and diesel profiles. So you get strains like Exodus Kush, which is Exodus cheese and OG Kush, or Cheese Dog, which is Exodus cheese and Temdog 91.
You're anchoring that classic savory funk to the modern fuel notes.
You got it. It ensures the new lines still have that essential loud aroma.
Let's move on to the formal first-generation classics. The derivatives that really cemented the skunk blueprint globally.
These were the immediate logical next steps. The most famous was Super Skunk. That was just skunk number 1 crossed back to its Afghani parent.
To double down on the indica traits?
Exactly. More resin, more stability, faster finish, an even better commercial plant.
And what about the ones that built the bridge to the next generation?
That would have to be Shiva Skunk, which crossed Northern Lights number 5 with skunk number 1. And for the outdoor growers, you had Early Skunk. That's skunk number 1, crossed with Early Pearl, which made sure you could finish a quality crop in northern latitudes.
That foundation leads us perfectly into the 1990s. How skunk defined the modern indoor era by forming bridges with the other giants, Northern Lights and Haze. Let's start with the Northern Lights X skunk rail. Why was that combo the gold standard?
Because that rail was the infrastructure of commercial indoor growing. Skunk provided the vigor and stability, while NL number 5 gave it a uniform structure and an even faster flowering time.
Stability, bulk, predictable finish times.
The whole package.
And the most important product from that combination has to be Big Bud.
Oh, absolutely. Big Bud was basically built on an Afghani X Skunk X Northern Lights backbone. It became legendary for its insane yields. It was later refined into critical mass by Mr. Nice Seeds.
So critical mass is basically the reboot, the champion version of that NL Skunk blueprint.
Exactly, a reworked, higher-yielding version. And that same rail gave us other classics like LSD, that's Mazar crossed with skunk number 1, and Nirvana's version of Master Kush, a Hindu Kush and skunk hybrid. If you grew indoors in the 90s, you were growing something on this rail.
Now for the other end of the spectrum, the Haze-esque skunk web. This is what gave us the sativa structure for some of the most famous cerebral experiences.
Right, and this is where skunk performed its most valuable service. It acted as the genetic brake pedal.
The brake pedal.
Yeah. Pure haze was notorious. It could flower for 6 months, grow 15 feet tall. It was impossible to grow commercially indoors. Skunk and NL genetics provided the stability and cut that flowering time down to, 10 or 12 weeks. It made the sativa experience viable.
That is the perfect functional explanation. So what are the key strains that show that perfect tripod of genetics?
Look no further than Super Silver Haze. It's built on that core foundation of skunk number 1, NL number 5, crossed to haze. That's the ultimate tripod. Haze for the racing high, NL for the density, and skunk tying it all together.
You see it everywhere.
You do. Jack Herer is Haze X Northern Lights SSH Shiva Skunk. A masterclass in complexity, but it's totally reliant on that skunk component for structure.
Right.
Same goes for its sister strain, Mango Haze.
And this web gets even more complex as we get into the modern era, leading to today's Dutch sativa champions.
Right down to things like Amnesia Haze, which, while it's a complex blend, still relies on that NL Skunk foundation. And even the current champion, Super Lemon Haze. That's a direct descendant. It's lemon skunk derivative crossed back into Super Silver Haze, which is already half skunk.
It's skunk feeding back into its own bloodline.
Exactly.
So we've covered structure and stability, but the DNA from those landraces wasn't just about yield. It defined the future of modern flavor. Let's pivot to the specialty branches, starting with the citrus and lemon universe.
This is one of skunk's most delicious surprises. Its genetics just carried this massive potential for citrus profiles. Dutch Passion isolated orange bud early on, a pure skunk selection known for its orange and sweet profile.
But the real game changer was lemon skunk.
Yes, it was a beautiful fusion of the U.S. and Dutch schools. A specific Vegas lemon skunk cutting crossed with a robust Dutch skunk, and that strain became an essential bridge.
Giving us modern hits like Lemon Tree.
Lemon Tree, which is lemon skunk and sour diesel, and of course, it gave Super Lemon Haze its name.
And we also see skunk bridging to more tropical, sweeter profiles.
Yeah, you have things like Island Sweet Skunk, which is sweet pink grapefruit, crossed with Big Skunk #1. And we have to mention the clone-only line, Green Crack, sometimes called Kush. That's a skunk-leaning line that shows off the sweet mango side of the flavor spectrum.
So what does this all mean for today? How does the 1970s creation connect to the dominant diesel and OG framework of the last decade?
It provides the stability, the vigor, and that initial spike. While OG Kush and ChemDog are their own dynasties, skunk quickly became the go-to partner for hybridizing them, for stabilizing their structure. We see this in lines like Chem Diesel and Sour Skunk.
So skunk acts as the genetic cement.
Precisely. Even the famous headband series, your OG Kush and Sour Diesel hybrids, they often have skunk ancestry way upstream. Take a modern legend like Bruce Banner, it's Strawberry Diesel x OG Kush. That diesel influence is historically tied back to skunk-influenced lines.
It's always there in the background.
Many generations back, but it's there. Even in complex new hybrids like Zukis, you can trace it back to that persistent, reliable skink Afghani backbone.
Finally, let's talk utility. Skunk #1 is celebrated for its sheer reliability, especially for difficult environments.
Its robustness made it essential for outdoor and auto-flowering programs. Besides early skunk, which we mentioned, Dutch Passion really specialized in using skunk to tackle northern European climates. They made lines like Frisian Dew for harsh weather and the absolutely fascinating Frisian Duck.
Ah, the one with the strange leaf shape.
Yes, it has these mutant webbed leaves that don't look like traditional cannabis, perfect for stealth outdoor growing. That's a breeder designing genetics for a specific problem, all reliant on the resilience of skunk DNA.
And in the auto-flowering world, skunk is still the industry standard.
It's the default stable component. The standard formula for the entire otter skunk category is basically just skunk #1 ecruderalis. That gave the vigor needed to introduce the auto-flowering trait reliably. It gave us everything from otter skunk #1 to Euphoria auto.
If we look back at the source material, the quantitative impact of this one strain is, well, it's staggering. Let's just contextualize the sheer scale of this lineage.
It's phenomenal. Your source documents show we're talking about 950 plus direct descendants in professional breeder catalogs.
Almost 1,000.
Nearly 1,000 professional breeders building their business on a single hybrid blueprint from the 1970s. It's unbelievable.
And the influence just keeps compounding.
Right. If you break down the major rail lines, the numbers explode. Over 400 NL skunk hybrids, more than 310 cheese family derivatives, and 350 plus Haze skunk hybrids. Skunk #1 isn't just a strain, it is the genetic operating system that the entire modern cannabis library was built on.
It's the reason why genetics from the late 90s and early 2000s were so repeatable. It provided that stabilizing force.
Exactly. And this brings us to a final provocative thought for you to mull over. If skunk #1 is the primary stable backbone and its descendants span every flavor from cheese and citrus to OG and haze, well, it raises an important question. Does the definition of a modern, successful cultivar depend more on the structural stability provided by this 1970s foundation than on the exotic novel crosses we see today?
A question of historical structure versus modern novelty. It seems like the foundation might matter more than the frosting. Thank you for sharing these sources and for joining us on this deep dive into the truly foundational genealogy of skunk #1.
It was a pleasure. It's a history that should never be forgotten.
Use this information as a map for your own continued learning. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.